creation. Was it a bit different reading along with that? You see the rhythm of the creation. All of this was made in those 6 days. It says, in the beginning, God created. And John begins with, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word is the creating force of God. When God speaks, it is, right? He says, let it be, and it was so. And it was good. All that God created, he said, was good. He set boundaries for things. Do you notice that? There's a lot of separating and forming and shaping, separating the waters above from the waters below and making the sky, separating the seas and the land so there would be dry spaces. Can you imagine what took place in that great upheaval? Now, scientists guess that there was this mass after this explosion, right? They say everything has to come from something. And suddenly, everything was there. Now, everyone has different suppositions about how long this took. I think it's entirely possible that this happened in 6 days. Maybe it was 6 eons, who knows? But because God is who God is, I think it is entirely possible that this was quick. But even those who believe in the Big Bang Theory, right, they say matter suddenly happened. Just suddenly exploded into existence all across the universe. And then these gases are formed and crushed into things. I think without knowing it, they're still influenced by this, God saying he made out of chaos everything. And when he spoke, it existed. Now, I don't want to get too wrapped up in who's right and who's wrong, in what this looks like, because this is more giving a form to how God made everything. There were lots of different accounts back then, written down before this was written down. This was spoken history, right? And all different suppositions like turtles and carrying worlds on their backs. And yet all of those were to build temples so that those gods who were creators and destroyers together would be worshipped in those spaces. God, the Word, God made flesh, God incarnate, created, it says, all this, light and darkness together, water and land, sea creatures, birds, everything that moves on the face of the earth, from the largest to the smallest. We're still discovering organisms that are smaller than we can see. All of those, says, God created with a design that baffles scientists and amazes them, right? Science is all about finding out what God has done and how God has made this amazing world that works together. It still is about that. God has made this amazing world. And there's a pairing here. It's not my focus, so I'm not going to focus too much on it. But if you go through, you'll notice the days numbered off, they coincide. God made the seas. Later on, he made everything that lived in the seas. He made the land. And then after everything that lived in the seas, he makes all that lives on the land, right? There's that echoing. But it culminates in making humankind. he had already given that first command, right, to the creatures of the sea and the air and the land to multiply and fill the earth. And then he gives the same command to people. But who is set apart? Humankind. The only ones made in the image of God. Humankind. In all its complexity, all its diversity, made in the image of God. I was listening to a commentary, and I agree with it, saying that there's a reason we are told in this tradition not to make idols of anything. No image of God in particular. We are not to try and make an image of God, to worship. The only images that are to bear the image of God are those sitting around you, those across the face of the earth. Each of us bear God's image. And yet we are not to be worshipped. We're not to worship each other. Only the living God who created each of us and this world in which we live. As I was mentioning earlier, these other epics, they all end in the creation. At the end of their creation is this big temple where they are to be worshipped. How does God end his creation? He makes people. And then he gives us rest. He rests and tells everyone else they should rest. That day is made holy. And the commentators don't mention this, but I thought it was interesting because what does God say? We just read it last week. Jesus said to the woman at the well, wherever you are, my God will come to be with you. He makes his temple in our hearts. We are his temple, in which we worship the Lord where we are. We worship the Lord in spirit and in truth. And we are called to take these times of rest, to imitate God in being creators, co-creators in the earth, to glorify God with the things that we make, the things that we do, and to worship God in the temple, the spirit that he gives us in our hearts. Not worship ourselves, worship God. Just want to clarify. We're definitely not to worship our own images. Society tells us to do that, right? How many of you have heard of that new movie that came out, K-pop Demon Hunters? One. One, okay. It is the rage. I have watched it. It was pretty good. But an interesting thing in there was the demons. Their first song is, I'm your idol. And I thought that was, there was a lot of things that spiritually weren't quite right in that. It's got a good message. It's definitely based in Korean mythology, right? But the demons were saying, the way we draw worship takes worship away from the proper ones. We draw worship and we say, I'm to be your idol. And that broke the world. And I think that's still a true message. We break the way it's supposed to work when we make each other idols. When we set people up as images to be worshipped. Now, you don't have to go out and watch the movie. You can if you want to, but just know that it's the new big thing, like Frozen was, like way back when I was a kid, Titanic. The big movie of the year. This is it, and it's good to know what it's about. God in creation makes all that is with complexity. I think it's interesting, many scientists come to faith, even if they can't say it's God who made it, they say there has to be a designer with intelligence behind everything that was made, because it works together. And all of creation is waiting for salvation, right? We were hearing about Revelation at the end, where all of creation has been waiting, groaning, waiting for the coming of the Lamb, waiting for the redemption. Jesus, the Redeemer, is the one who came to bring life and bring restoration to all of creation. And we are invited into bringing that about too. And I had meant to talk today about poetry and about making things, building things. That's the co-creating part. When we make things with our hands, or with our words, with our minds, with our song, with our cooking, all these different things are arts, means of creation, physics. All of this is ways of using God's creation and co-creating with Him. But a reminder not to worship the things that are made, but give glory to the one who gives us that creativity, to the one who has made all things, who is the light who shines in the darkness, who brings us freedom, who brings all of creation freedom. And He gives us that sanctuary in time, that day of rest, the time to reflect, to worship God, to acknowledge this Creator, this one who gives us wholeness and peace, to acknowledge the one who gives life. Every time He says it is good, are times where life could be brought about, things that were working towards life being possible. And God looks at the life that is made and says, it is good. Even more so, He looks at our lives when life is brought about, says, it is good. May we have our eyes open to this creation, the wonder of it that God has made. Tonight is the moon they call the blood moon, right? It's a full moon. There's an eclipse. We don't get to see the full eclipse on this side of the world. They get to see it on the other side. But it is the previously called harvest moon, when we recognize the wonder, this light that was set in place in the night to reflect the light of the sun. Once again, may we reflect the light of the Son of God in our lives as well.